they tell you a lot about what's going on between atoms. Anyway, to my formal training, Hale School. So the only point there, Maths A is what you call now mathematics specialist. And I'd recommend that if you want to study a course at the university in science. Most sciences, I'm not qualified about biological sciences, but some of my colleague presenters will tell you all about that. I did physics, as you can see. Then I was having a terrible time. I started to do a PhD at UWA, and this is a good story. And I thought I'd waste some time telling you, because it's got a really good story. I did my PhD at CSIRO. How the hell did that happen? Well, my PhD after 2 years at UWA was a disaster. So I applied for a job in Canberra, and it wasn't for me. I went down to Melbourne, and I rang up a scientist I knew from the literature only, who was in the field that I've been trying to do my PhD, and asked if I could come and speak with him. Lovely chap. I went and had a whole day with him, and after that he said, "Oh, you must go and see Moody, a great friend of mine. He's much closer to what you're doing." So off I went down to Fisherman's Bend in Melbourne, and I spent another brilliant day with Moody, and I could understand half of what he was saying. It was fantastic. He took me to the chief of division to have afternoon tea, and after talking for a bit I said, "Do you think," I said, "I'm having a terrible problem with my PhD. Do you think I could come and do some experimental work here?" And they asked me to wait outside. And when I asked me back in, fine, no problem. So I was absolutely elated. And I never looked back. My career was revolutionised because Moody turned out to be one of the most brilliant scientists in the field I was working in the world. So I worked for him, fortunately, for about 18 years. Anyway, the lesson is, if you don't ask, you'll never know. So always be brave and ask people. So what did the above training prepare me for? So firstly, scientific research, that's pretty obvious. A university postgraduate position, which can be a stepping stone either to more university work, or you can go to any business involving technology. You can be with BHP, you can be with any company that wants your brains, even the financial company. There's quite a lot of PhD in physics working in the finance industries, for example. So the point is, there's a shortage of skilled, trained physics graduates. So from UWA, only 2% of physics graduates don't get a job quickly. So that gives you an idea of the demand. What's next? What do you need to know in this technological age? These are the questions I've been asked to try and answer for you. I'm afraid I'm not very good because I'm not broad enough. I'm too focused on physics, but you just have to put up with that. So maths, you've got to do the highest level of maths. If you want to study science effectively, although some sciences, I stand to be corrected here by my fellow presenters. At the minimum, you clearly, if you want to do architecture or electronics, aviation, maritime industries, you need to know something about trigonometry. So what about electronics? Well, we'll leave that and we'll come to physics. So you've got to do your mechanics, these basic things, and your teachers can tell you more than I can about that. But I would recommend electronics. And the reason is, everything's electronics today. You can buy a scientific instrument, it's got a computer in it. If you know something about what's inside that box, you'll be able to use it better. So that's a firm recommendation that's helped me in my career. Other, chemistry. You need to know computing in chemistry. There's no question about that. What else you need to know for a general career in physics or chemistry is you need to know something about the properties of materials. And you need to know something about analytical methods. And I can explain that to you in more detail later. And Anthony Barnes is next. That's all I've got to say. Anthony, there you go.
My name's Anthony Barnes. I graduated in 2001. After school, I started off with a science degree, mainly because I didn't have a clear understanding of where I wanted to go. I just knew I wanted to go in that direction. I suppose first year science was fairly broad. You could study a few things. When it got to second year, you needed to start thinking about what you wanted to do third year, because there was a lot of prerequisites in those degrees. So if you wanted to go third year genetics, you obviously need to do second year type thing. I ended up majoring in pharmacology and genetics. The degree provided, great practical experience where, we were only able to do theory in things like Year 12. So also the professors doing the research had very knowledge in the different fields. So, and they were the ones teaching you. So they were a great research in terms of a resource in terms of providing information. Particularly one of the ones, I didn't actually work as a scientist per se. I did actually get a scholarship on summer vacation where I worked in the toxicology lab between second and third year, where I only got about $100 a week, but I was mainly there for the experience rather than the money. It gave me some real world insight into what I wanted to do, and it gave me an opportunity, if I were to go into that field, that that extra experience gave me a one-up on the 100 other graduates graduating that year. So it's always a good idea to try to do that. I had to bug one of my professors for that, so it's always worth asking, as Andrew clearly said. So my science degree was gateway for my Masters in Pharmacy, and you can do the same thing. I had friends who did science degrees and then went on to do physiotherapy, medicine, dentistry, and also they were very happy with their science degrees and sort of graduated from there. It also allowed me to change direction in my career. A few years ago I decided I didn't want to do pharmacy anymore, so I did teaching. I specialised in junior science, junior maths, and ATAR level chemistry, so that was very interesting to me. My pharmacy degree, I relied on knowledge gained from my science degree, so that was a great insight. Our first year we kind of did a bit of theory and then did community pharmacy. The second year we did more theory and then applied that to hospital experience, but that was obviously a bit more broad, so we went to places like Greylands where we did psych, drugs, Charlie Gardner, St John of God where we did general medicine. We also did children and maternity hospitals such as King Edward, and it was PMH at the time, but I'd probably say that for Fiona Stanley moving forward. And then the last semester we had to do a thesis because it was a master's degree, so kind of think of your science reports, but rather than doing it over a day, it was over 6 months, and probably a minimum, I think it was 10,000 words. So yeah, a little bit of extra work there for those ones. In terms of how does maths and science prepare you for the current technology age, I believe a science degree is really good in giving you some life skills. You're often required to think critically about any given situation with a science. You're talking about your problems in science, and you're required to use the knowledge that you have, provide a theoretical answer, and then try actually go out there and find out, do some research yourself, and see if you're actually right. I suppose this is a good example of when it doesn't work and you're not actually a critical thinker is when autism and vaccines, a lot of people didn't vaccinate their children because they just accepted one answer rather than actually critically thinking about what was actually happening there. I suppose the flip side of the coin is technology advancements can actually really help you in your career. I suppose there's a lot of checks and balances in pharmacy, so we can barcode scan things rather than typing them in, so we're a lot quicker, and therefore you can spend a bit more time with your patients, which is really important to patients because they're not interested in you, sticking the label on the box. They're more interested in you talking to you about how you can help them, and there's a whole bunch of things that can help in pharmacy. We can do body mass indexes, we can do weights, track that. There's all these little apps that you can use, but you're sort of limited by your own enthusiasm and your own willingness to learn. I suppose the comment, level up in life rather than in game. So actually you're limited by your own experiences and your own willingness to go and out and learn. So use technology to better yourself and help yourself grow as a person. Thank you.
So, hi all. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Brendan, and I graduated Hale in 2013, and I currently work for a non-profit organisation as a finance officer. So it seems that the point of tonight is pretty much about the paths you can take after finishing high school to get into your chosen field. And what I'll be talking about tonight is pretty much the path I took to get into the industry I'm in, and the opportunities that are available to you if you are interested in pursuing something finance related. So like a lot of you will be doing, I finished high school and started an undergraduate degree at Commerce in UWA. After completing that, I then went on to do my Masters in Finance at Curtin University. Generally, the goal for finance is to do the accounting and finance double major, as accounting gives you a base knowledge for what you'll be doing, and how it's often explained is that accounting is how you get the numbers, and then finance is what you do with them, so the two industries tend to intersect. Something I found to be very important with finding a job after finishing university is to make sure that you have experience before you apply, as a lot of companies aren't too interested in training somebody up from scratch. This is generally done through internships or vacation work, and the experience that you get will be invaluable for when you eventually do transition into the workplace. However, even if you are able to secure weekend work doing bookkeeping while you study, or even in high school, this will prove to help a lot when you finish at university, as once again, that is that extra experience. Along with preparing you for your standard entry-level finance jobs, studying finance also opens up the door to a number of opportunities down the road. Some of these being industries such as asset management, investment banking, financial advising, equity management, auditing, and financial accounting. All industries which can be very lucrative if you are able to get into them and do well at them. Moving on to the theme of science and maths for tonight, I found through university and in my current job that having a good understanding of intermediate mathematics is vital to succeeding in the finance and accounting industry. When studying a commerce degree, having a basic understanding of maths is vital to finishing your first year accounting, finance and economic units. And I believe that the equivalent subject for this at high school would be mathematics applications. I think it is today. On top of this, UWA and Curtin love to have a first year statistics unit. It's infamous for commerce students that expands on the knowledge provided in ATAR Mathematics Methods course. However, if you don't be discouraged if you aren't currently doing methods, as they do provide bridging units to learn this content at university. However, it is easier to skip that by learning it in high school and save yourself the additional step which you would incur. If you are thinking of pursuing your masters, both science and maths are important, as they provide the foundation for statistical analysis, as well as financial statement analysis, which are very important methods of analysing financial data and obviously making relevant investment decisions for either yourself or your clients. The process of also creating and testing a hypothesis is done throughout universities, so definitely don't discount your science classes. However, even aside from your university studies and everyday job, I have found that maths coupled with finance has been invaluable when evaluating personal investing opportunities, making sure that your work is always mathematically correct, and even things as simple as working out depreciation for your yearly tax so that you don't have to pay an accountant to do it for you. Lastly, the environment when you're studying at school provides a much better opportunity for you to get the base concepts than you will have in university, as universities can be very fast-paced and the opportunity to get one-on-one tuition actually isn't always available. With this being said, make sure you use your teachers as much as possible while you're studying here at Hale. Your teachers and staff will always go the extra mile for you here, and given that you're willing to put in extra work, something that I wish I had done more while I was here, as I did actually pay for it later in my first year of uni. Anyway, thank you very much for having me speak to you all tonight, and I wish you all the best with your endeavours.
We forgot the order. Thanks guys, thanks for having me along. I went to Hull very briefly. I was the bottom of the maths class here, luckily. It was so long ago none of the teachers are still teaching here, so I'm glad. So I can finally stand up here and say profound things. The really cool thing, Bud, if you're struggling in maths and science, is you just keep going till you get a PhD. No one ever asked me what I got at school, because I'm Dr. Stuart Bosch, okay? And on the Qantas planes, it really works well for upgrades. Except they think I'm a medical doctor, and you know when a medical emergency is, sort of hunker down and just avoid eye contact. You don't want to see. Someone showed me a growth on their side there. It was horrible. Anyway, the plane food was bad as well. So look, I haven't prepared a speech tonight because I thought I'd just talk off the cuff about a few things. I've had a rambly career, but a kind of fun one. Look, science is a very cool spot. My dad's a doctor, so I was thinking of doing medicine. But I saw him do obstetrics, so he was out delivering babies all night. And I thought, I really don't want to do this. He drove a very nice car and all these things. So I went into science and started a few companies. And my first company was a complete disaster. I was one of the first people that called themselves genetic engineers. And this was back in the days that was cool. If you went to a bar and you were a single guy, like I was then, said you're a genetic engineer, it may seem strange, but women really thought it was kind of cool. That's before the Green Movement decided we were actually a little more like Satan and they should ban us. So we were going around trying to get attention. Suddenly we got so much attention. I had the first weak genetic engineering company. We were putting genes in for salt tolerance and things. And then suddenly it was all banned and we're shut down. So I switched and started a testing company for genetically engineered products and foods. So I'm very adaptable. That failed as well. We got a bit of media attention. I was on Today Tonight, really set up with the customers like Sanitarium on the other side who were paying us to do these tests and were exposing their genetically engineered products. So I didn't think that through. So I moved to New Zealand, like you do when things are really bad, right? I lived in Auckland for many years, drove a big 7-class Mercedes because cars are really cheap over there. And that was kind of fun, and drove around. And I was working for an ag biotech company. It was funded by the government. We had 1,100 scientists. We were the commercial group, and we had revenues, and we had all these things. It taught me to run businesses because I actually came in and it was a real business. And we were selling animal health products. We were making cows with human genes for certain lactoferrin and different things. So we're making some really cool things over there. That was a good time, but I thought, you know, Australia's where the heart is, so I moved back here and got into the ASX listed companies where I survive now. I now sit on different boards. I'm a really bad CEO. I decided that after about 15, 20 years as a CEO. I'm a crap CEO. you know, because I love staff, and you know, you can never sort of tell them what you really think. So you know, they're always good. And you know, there's all these formalities and different things you have to do with companies, so that didn't do so well. So I just sit on boards now. So that's really, I'm like a psychotherapist for really good CEOs, I keep them saying. The cool companies I sit on, Orthocell, I'm chairman of Orthocell. We got a bit of media coverage actually the last few weeks, so some of you may have seen it, in nerve repair. So we've got this scaffold. We pull nerves together, or the neurosurgeon does, snips them off, and a scaffold wraps around, we glue it on, and it repairs through. And we got 70-80% full nerve repair. Our stock price went from 11 cents. The company was so poor at the time, I actually said, look, just pay me in shares, don't pay me in cash. Now the stock price went up to 55 cents. So it was brilliant. You know? So sometimes you get it right, but you've got to back these things. This has taken a long time to get there. We also repair tendons and cartilage. I also sit on a company called Sonata. We did a deal with Fujifilm, who's going to be the biggest regenerative medicine company in the world in graft versus host disease. That's in mesenchymal stem cells, something you may have heard of. We've got a technology to make lots of these things without bone marrow donation or embryonic stem cells. Religion and science battle quite regularly as well, but don't get caught into the battle, because you'll basically lose. Because if the public goes against you, like on the GM, you have to just adapt. And look, this thing, I mean, as you were saying, the autism and you know, phobias about vaccination now is a real problem. In New Zealand, they're getting outbreaks of diseases that should not exist in the world because of this lack of scientific understanding. But remember, the public really don't understand science. But look, go into science. I also work now in medical cannabis, which is a very funky field. Dad got me into that. He started a thing called Ozcan. I worked with them for a while. We've started Emerald Clinics, some of the first cannabis clinics now. One in Subiaco, one in Sydney. We're about to open one in London. But the big thing is we're collecting human data on how cannabis works for pain control and different things. We're working with artificial intelligence guys to analyse this data and start to predict how things will come together. So, look, we have a really cool, fun time. We're working on acne control and psoriasis with cannabis on the skin and transdermal formulations as well in a company called Botanics. So it's a wide range of things you can do from science. I think science is your base-based thing. And I'll just finish on one thing I read the other day, and it sort of appealed to me. Maths is your core science. Without maths, you cannot have any other science. Physics folds around that, and without maths, you can't have physics. But physics forms the basis of chemistry, and chemistry forms the basis of biology. So I think if you think about it like that's a really cool thing. You guys are doing some really funky stuff. I'd love to go back and be your age again. I probably wouldn't change a lot of things because I've had a really fun time to get here. But don't stress too much about what you're going to do with your degree. Science opens doors all over the place. You know, I'm getting now offers to work in all sorts of different fields. We travel in very nice flights around the world, stay in very nice hotels funded by people who all I have to do is look sort of like I know what's going on. Sometimes I don't, but I surround myself with really cool people and smart people that do, and I'm like the nerd whisperer at times, because I was a nerd at school. I mean, you guys are all cool. I don't know anyone here is really anywhere near as nerdy as I was. I was like Napoleon Dynamite. I had the curly hair brushed to one side, thick glasses. Lucky I went to Hale because there's no girls to pick on me. Things got better, so, and I've now married a girl who's a scientist as well. So we met at university, so she's a PhD as well, and she's far more successful and smarter than me, so marry well is the other thing. I'll wait into that before I get myself in trouble.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Simon Trinder. I was at Hale from 85 to 90. Okay. Like a lot of these other gents in the front row, I had a sort of natural calling to maths. I didn't particularly do very well in chemistry. or English, but maths and physics seem to suit me pretty well. So I went off to engineering, and from engineering I worked out that pretty quickly it interfered with my social life. And there was a lot of study to be done, but what the big turning point for me was I did a couple of programming units in engineering and worked out that's for me. So back in the day I transferred across the curtain and I did a computer science degree with software engineering and geographic information systems as my majors. Now what we call GIS, or these days it's called locational intelligence, was a very new industry. The computer power wasn't there to do a lot of the processing that we do now. So remembering back in 1995, my phone is probably 10 times more powerful than the first computer that I had at work. Okay, so that's in 25 years. So you can see where technology's come from. And I think it's just going to accelerate more and more and more and more. Okay. So I used my programming and my interest in computers to move into what we call GIS, and it's like everyone's used Google Maps, yes? So Google Maps, well, we do that, but on steroids, okay? So that's the public face to some of the stuff that Google does behind the scenes, but it's all done through people cutting code, thinking about what they're writing, thinking about what people would like to see. Okay, so you look at all the apps that you guys use on your phone, all of the, say, the Microsoft products that you use. There are smart people behind the scenes cutting code, using algorithms, using maths to say, that's how if I was using the software, how would I improve it? How would I make it more ergonomically, better for the user to use the software, okay? So from there, I've worked in multiple different fields. I was working for a technology company down in Fremantle called Nortronics. They did underwater positioning systems. I've worked for mining companies in the ag industry, because you think about it, everything that you do has a location. Where you live has a location, where you buy food has a location, where you go to work has a location. So currently I work for BHP, and everything that we do at BHP has a location. Are we on tenure? Are we off tenure? Are we digging in the right spot? Does our license allow us to dig there? And then the big game changer for us coming up is autonomous haulage, okay? It's machine learning, but all of those fantastic things that are coming come from people with a maths background that like programming, okay? So that's a bit about me. So what has my formal training, so at university, prepared me for? Look, I think I have an in-depth knowledge of how computers work. If you want to get into sort of computer science, you need to know how computers work fundamentally. Okay, it taught me how to program software correctly. So we're not just hacking in the background, saying hello world on the screen. You know, there's rules and a discipline behind writing software. Okay, it teaches how to work with people and in teams, because there's lots of people have conflicting ideas all of the time. And if you're working with people in science, you have to take other people's points of views, because if you don't, you're going to start butting heads, and then work's not fun. Okay, so you need to learn how to work with people. Never be afraid to ask questions. Okay, so if you want to go into all of these disciplines that all these guys have been talking about, there's never such thing as a dumb question. Okay, ask questions, even at school. The more questions you ask, the more you stimulate your brain, and the better off you'll be. Okay. So the second question was, how does a background in maths and science prepare you in the current technological age? Look, we're moving into an age which is under the influence of information. Can I get this out? It's on the web. information, which basically says everything we do. We've got all this information coming in to the point where there might be too much information. So you need to pull out the bits of the information that work for you. Okay, we're going into automation. Okay, everything, I can see that in the next 10 or 15 years, you can see Google talking about this, is we'll just get in a car and the car will drive us to work. Okay, there's machine learning. People out there, you've got your Google Homes. Okay, so you can start talking to those things and they talk back to you. So that happens because there's people in the background cutting code. There's machine learning going on. There's digitisation. Everything that we do now is digital. Okay, you read the paper online. You don't have a directory book in your car like the UVD because you do it all off of your phone. Okay, so everything's becoming digital, and the other thing, it's global. Okay, and we see that with our apps. You create a good app on your phone, and it's not just for the Australian market, it's not just for the Southeast, it's a global market, okay? So if you're doing maths and science, just remember those things, that it's information, it's automation, it's digital information, and it's on a global scale. And you guys are probably in a far better position knowing your apps, knowing your phones, having computers at school, which none of us had. So you're in a far better position if that's the career that you want to take. Leverage what you have, and like all these other gents, it can provide you a great career. Okay? So thanks very much.
Good evening everyone, my name's Kurt Brooks. I finished at Hale in 1991 and sat the old Maths 2 and 3 subjects, and was certainly the subject that I enjoyed the most, and I guess I was very fortunate to have a great maths teacher, Mr Campbell, who some of his men might still remember. After school I went to UWA and completed a computer and mathematical sciences degree, and I majored in mathematical statistics and quantitative finance. I then completed a honours degree in mathematical statistics and probability theory. Following university, I decided to pursue the actuarial career, which enabled me to combine my analytical skills, problem solving skills to solve problems in business. So I moved over east to Melbourne and joined a life insurance company where I did traditional actuarial work, which involved, I guess, calculation of policy liabilities, capital, product pricing, risk management. Then moved to AXA Asia Pacific, which was into their strategic finance team. Worked in treasury, corporate finance, did a lot of work in merger and acquisitions, new market entries into different countries in Asia, and a lot of capital management as well. Subsequent to that, I moved to Rio Tinto and moved into their international operations and worked on a very large project in West Africa, in Guinea. And I guess that was really around strategy, scenario analysis, portfolio optimisation in terms of Rio Tinto's assets globally. And most recently I've moved to a not-for-profit, HBF, which is a health insurance company, into their newly formed business development team. So I guess the fields that my training prepared me for was really traditional areas of insurance, superannuation, wealth management, banking, risk management, but also newer high growth areas, in particular data analytics, and some other areas like mining and even agriculture, which perhaps traditionally weren't where people with a maths background went to In terms of the digital age, what does that actually mean? I guess for me it's data analytics, using big data to provide insights and support decision making. Artificial intelligence, for example in medicine, they're using a lot of AI now to diagnose diseases and finding that it's more accurate than humans. Automation, driverless vehicles, so on pretty much all Rio Tinto mine sites now there's autonomous trucks, there's now driverless trains, all the drill rigs are now autonomous, and robotics. So in terms of a background in maths, I think that the skill set provides you with the sort of the understanding of all the building blocks that sort of underpin the digital age that we're seeing. It also provides you with problem solving and reasoning, ability to think creatively and critically to help explain things, and the ability to communicate, which really is critical in business, particularly having sort of a logical mindset, a logical way of thinking, and providing evidence-based reasoning. So I think maths is very much a universal language and will provide you with opportunities in pretty much any field that you choose to go into, and also lots of opportunities to work overseas. When I was with AXA, I had the opportunity to work in Hong Kong for a couple of years and worked on projects throughout the Asian region. So I'd encourage you to pursue maths, as it will keep your options open and certainly provides a way to differentiate yourself. Thank you.
Hi all, I'm James, and like everyone else here, I also did physics, maths, and chemistry, but I actually did art as well in high school. So it actually comes back and it actually helped a little bit with what I'm doing right now. So right now I'm doing my PhD in UWA, and it's in comparative respiratory physiology. And what my project really looks at is how does the hopping in kangaroo affect the way they breathe? Now, it might not sound like any maths or a lot of physics is involved, but it's all there. Leading up to my PhD, I was doing just normal physiology. I did neuroscience, the double major there, and once I started my honours, which was in this project, I came back and realised I was doing the projects, and I actually started realising a lot of my physics skills I learnt was being applied in this field. Now you don't really think of breathing because it's a natural thing you do. You know, you wake up and you're already breathing, but when you try to trace it out on a piece of paper, it just gives you a very nice sine curve. And if you've done maths in there yet, you'll know it's a very simple side of trigonometry. So that's where directly maths has already helped me with my project. And I'm actually in the stage where I'm receiving my formal training right now. So I am being told that I have a lot of opportunities, and listen to everyone speak. I'm set up to do a lot of different career paths. And I think leading on here, one of the main aspects which I was surprised about to encounter in my PhD was actually using the MRI machine. So it's quite a frequently and used application in medicine now. You know, sometimes you get a head injury, you head into the hospital, you get an MRI scan. So this project, although it's on kangaroo lungs, it's given me the opportunity to learn and develop these skills directly, how to set up an MRI machine, and then my physics background helped me understand how the machine actually works. And then with my math in high school, it's helping me with the analysis side of the stage with the MRI. I was surprised at how much different algorithms are used to clean up the picture, even just thinking about what is made made up, what makes up the picture, you know, with each pixel, and how to turn like like a straight line with rugged edges to a smooth straight line. There's a lot of maths involved in that one simple operation. So leading towards, you know, my potential career now, those actual specific subjects have helped me a lot. And one surprising thing was how the art that I did in high school has helped. There's actually a lot of creative thinking that is required in research about project designs. You know, coming up with a unique and different project and experiment that hasn't been done before actually needs a lot of creative thinking. But then the math comes in and the critical thinking in science. You know, you can't just come up with something creative if it doesn't address the aims properly. So I was surprised at how the art and the maths came in really nicely together. But moving from there, I think the biggest thing I've learned through doing science and what has helped me is all the failures. And listening to the other speakers, science is built on failure. You know, there's not a lot of subjects where, you know, failing is just as good as succeeding. Actually, sometimes even better. You know, you succeed, it's like, how did it work? Well, I'm not too sure, it just worked. But if you keep failing, experiment over and over, fixing the problems, develop your problem-solving skills, and also develop your analytical skills. And you can come up, it's like, why did it work? Well, I know exactly why it worked because of all these reasons that it didn't work. So that was, you know, it is one of the things that I've taken away from doing my PhD, and really helps build your character, develop grit, and one of the biggest thing is hard work, because, you know, you can be very smart, but if the experiments aren't done, it doesn't really matter how smart you are. You can, it's not being done, so you can actually get through a lot of your undergrad, get through your PhD, if you do the work compared to someone that just doesn't do the work. So it's, I think that's going to help set me up, and then it's going to be exciting to see where things go from here. So in terms of what my project will let me do is it just, you know, there's a lot of pathways to go, so I think I'll just leave it at that. So, thank you.
That means it's me, I guess. I haven't heard any bells go off. What does that mean?
Means everybody's running to schedule.
Seriously? My name's Tom Riley, and I was at Hale, I think, more than 50 years ago. I can't quite remember. I've probably had a very atypical pathway to becoming an academic, which I'm going to briefly share with you. And it seems that kind of the more mature of the presenters need slides to be able to do things. I'm not sure if that's because we've forgotten everything, but so I'm a microbiologist, and you can read what microbiology is all about there. I've been doing this now for 40-something years. I still love it. I still go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. I usually go home at 7 o'clock at night, and I do that, if I'm in the state, 7 days a week. And that might sound a bit stupid, but I still love what I do. The good thing about microbiology is kind of everywhere. Whether we're talking about viruses or bacteria or fungi, they impact on everything we do. And therefore, if you want to do microbiology, you can work in a whole range of different fields. And I'll just list a few things there. You can do biomedical sciences, which is kind of where I started, but you can do food science. I mean, making beer and wine, it's all microbiology. So the opportunities, in my view anyway, are kind of limitless if you have a kind of a said, I think I have a very atypical pathway. I did biomedical sciences at Curtin to start with. Well, in fact, when I first left Hale, I was going to be an industrial chemist. And I enrolled in that, and I absolutely hated it because I didn't do enough experiments. All I wanted to do was experiments. I was so stupid back then. And this course didn't give me enough experiments, so I thought, I'll apply for a job which says laboratory assistant, because I figured a laboratory assistant would do experiments. So I applied for all these jobs which said laboratory assistant. The first job I got was, funnily enough, at King Edward in the microbiology lab. And after about 2 days, I thought, this is fantastic. And in fact, King Edward Hospital paid for me to go back to do biomedical sciences. So I did biomedical sciences at Curtin, then I did a PhD at UWA while I was still working in the lab. So I did my PhD part-time, which sounds like a hard way to do it, and I guess it is, but I wouldn't have changed that. I then decided that my research was becoming more epidemiological, and so I thought I'd better go and get some sort of qualification in epidemiology, so I went off and did a master's degree at ANU. I took 2 years off from my job. For some reason they kept my job for me down at Clover Stage. I was working down at QE2. I worked in the health department while I was doing my master's degree. So this is, that's me. The last time I wore long pants. I do go to work dressed like this every day. Sometimes I just wear thongs. Which is not really derogatory in microbiology perhaps, but I'm in charge, so I get away with it. This is an international conference, and here I am. I've just given a talk, and I have changed my shoes and socks since then, even though they're the same shoes and socks I've got on now. I think this was taken about 1970 on the front steps of the pathology department. So, like I said, it's not really a typical pathway. For the last 25 years, I've just done research. I ended up running the diagnostic micro lab at Charles Gardner up until about 1995. And since then, I've just done research. And so this is what I researched. There's one bug. Now this may come as a shock, but this bug causes diarrhea. But it kills lots of people. 40 people a day die in the United States from infection with this bug, and that's why it's big business, because if 40 people a day are dying in the US, of course the US are the most important people in the world. Unfortunately, Donald Trump hasn't caught this bug yet, but I'm very tempted. So it's a Clostridium, it forms spores, it causes diarrhea. If you don't treat it, you end up having your gut cut out. We used to think it was just a hospital problem, but now we find it's a problem in animals, and you get contaminated vegetables, and the CDC says it's the number 1 threat bug in the world. So that's kind of what we're doing for the last 25 years. It's important. People die. We're trying to work out how to stop people dying. And the way you stop people getting this bug is to not use as many antibiotics as what's being used. So I'm just going to finish with a little story about how I ended up working on this bug, because I think this is quite instructive. This is a photograph. I've been clever to try and hide this guy's identity. My boss when I first started working down at QE2, and he had this great idea, because I was interested in anaerobic bacteria. He said, what I want you to do, every time a patient's going to have elective surgery, we're going to collect a fecal sample. I want you to isolate all the bugs, and if anybody knows anything about bugs in the gut, there are thousands of different bugs in the gut. He said, I want you to isolate all the different bugs in these people's specimens, identify them, work out what antibiotics will kill them, and so when they get their post-operative infection, and this is the true story, when they get their post-operative infection, we'll know what to treat them with. And I said, that is the biggest load of crap I've ever heard in my life. I stormed out of his office, and for my penance, I was sent to the part of the lab that was the kind of the lowest of the low, and that was culturing poo, looking for bugs in poo. And so I thought, oh, what can I do now that I'm stuck in this position? I have to look at poo all day. There was this new bug that had suddenly come on the market as a word, Clostridium difficile, 40 years ago or thereabout. And so I said, well, I can look for Clostridium difficile. And so that's how I actually started working on this bug, which has subsequently got me around the world very often these days. I was talking about aeroplanes, it was you, wasn't it, Stuart? So, and you do get upgrades. I cannot tell a lie. I went to a conference a couple of weeks ago in Europe, and that lovely Mr. Qatar airline man, he upgraded me to first class both ways. So I was very happy. So the moral of this story is shown on the slide. Even though you end up in the ship, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So there are many things about this story that I think you can take away. One is, even if you end up doing the wrong thing, you'll all be young enough to change your mind and do something else. There's plenty of time to do that. If you think you're right, then stick to your guns and go off and do what you want to do. Hopefully you won't all end up in shit like me, but even if you do, you may have a happy ending. So on that note, if you want to know the technology question, I hate technology. If somebody mentions self-driving cars again, I will scream. Driving old cars is my hobby. I've got 60 of them, so I know nothing about computers. Happy to say that. And the only reason I have WhatsApp on my phone is because all my students have WhatsApp, and it's the only way I know what's going on in my laboratory. Because they send these funny little messages around saying we're going to have a meeting. So I'm not a big technology person. I'm sure it's wonderful, but it's not for me. Give me an agar plate and a loop, and I can grow my bugs. So I'm going to stop and disappear back into my corner.
Thank you very much to all the presenters. Nancy and Helen, could I ask you presenters if you would like to go to them? The second part of our evening is we'll head upstairs to the functions room momentarily, and you'll be able to speak with the old boys. As they move out, I'll just wrap up with a few points that I thought were fairly pertinent, and then we'll move upstairs. Thank you very much, guys. Last week, the West Australian Government released the STEM Skills Strategy for Jobs. So I think that's a fairly significant indication, as the gentleman has mentioned, that this notion of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and I thought it was very good that James mentioned the notion of arts in there, which often gets neglected, or STEAM is another acronym that's used. But that's been introduced, and it sort of looks through education and a progressive transition of how STEM will relate to you young fellas sitting in the room. I thought it was also interesting that the gents spoke about the 4 C's of collaboration, critical reflection, creativity and communication. Yes, they definitely relate to maths and science, but they also relate to everything else that you're going to encounter as you transition from school to university to employment. I thought Professor Andrew Johnson made a very critical point about connections and taking opportunities and creating opportunities for yourself. Dr. Stuart Washer mentioned the notion of being persistent. A number of the presenters mentioned this notion of diversity and the fact that there is a lot of opportunities within the maths and sciences. And I think as young people, for the students sitting in the room, that diversity is very important. The Foundation for Young Australians in their work around this is saying that you'll have at least 7 different careers in your lifespan. And I think it's very important for you young blokes to realise that you'll finish school at 18, you'll finish your degree at around 22 if you go that way, or if you do a trade. And then for the next 48 years of your life, if the Australian Federal Government retirement age comes to fruition at 70, that's your lifespan from work. And so I think that notion of diversity, particularly in this technological age, is very important. And I thought the one thing that James mentioned that I certainly liked a lot, and I think sometimes, particularly in secondary education, that notion of failure. It is okay to fail. Most importantly, it helps develop character, but it helps you to fine-tune your problems. And I was just talking to one of the young boys tonight, Year 12, just come off the exams, and I think there's opportunity in that where boys, you'll ruminate, you'll look at things and think, oh, I could have done better, and you maybe get a little bit subjective about it. I think it's very important that you look at things and results particularly objectively, and you take the opportunity and the time to find what the problem was, rectify the problem, and move on and do better in the next instance. Thank you very much for coming tonight. If you'd like to move upstairs to the functions room, you'll be able to speak to the old boys about anything that you have questions on. Thank you.